My name is Molly D. Bowen, and I am 29 years old. I was in the middle of making dinner when my boyfriend dropped it on me like it was nothing. I was chopping onions, eyes already burning, when he leaned against the counter and said, "I need the apartment this weekend. Don't ask questions." The knife paused midair. I looked up at him, waiting for the rest of the sentence that never came. "This weekend?" I asked. "Friday through Sunday," he said. "I need you to stay somewhere else." The way he said it wasn't a request, it was a directive. Calm, firm, almost rehearsed. I reminded him it was my apartment. He nodded quickly, like he'd already prepared for that objection. "I know, and I wouldn't ask if it wasn't really important. Please just trust me on this." Trust. That word landed heavier than the rest. I asked where he expected me to go. He suggested my brother's place or a hotel, and oddly enough, offered to split the cost. That alone made my stomach tighten. He never wanted to split costs. Not dinners, not trips, not groceries. Now he was suddenly generous. Something felt off, not loud or obvious, just wrong. I agreed anyway. I don't know why. Maybe because part of me already knew the answer and wasn't ready to hear it out loud. He kissed my cheek, thanked me, told me I was amazing. When he left the room, I stood there staring at the cutting board, the onions forgotten, replaying the last few weeks in my head. The phone calls he took in the other room, the way he smiled at his screen and locked it the second he noticed me looking, the plans that kept changing at the last minute. I'd noticed it all. I just hadn't connected the dots. Asking me to leave my own apartment for an entire weekend without explanation wasn't subtle. It was bold. After dinner, I sat on the couch, scrolling through my phone until an idea settled into place with unsettling clarity. I ordered a small security camera online, the kind that looks like a phone charger. Records to the cloud, clear video, audio. It would arrive Thursday. Perfect timing. I called a friend and asked if I could crash on his couch for the weekend. He said yes, without asking why. Friday afternoon, I packed a bag and made a show of leaving. Kissed my boyfriend goodbye, told him to have a good weekend. He looked relieved, and that relief told me more than any argument could have. The camera arrived the day before. I plugged it in behind the TV, angled toward the couch and front door, tested the app on my phone, crystal clear. I didn't feel sneaky. I felt prepared. When I got to my friend's place, I opened the live feed immediately. For hours, nothing happened. My boyfriend ordered food, watched Netflix, moved around the apartment like normal. I almost convinced myself I was being paranoid. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe this really was something innocent. Then the front door opened. A man walked in, tall, early 30s, still wearing what looked like a work suit. My boyfriend greeted him with a kiss that left no room for interpretation. I sat frozen on the couch, phone in my hand, watching my boyfriend kiss another man in my apartment. They talked, laughed, opened wine. Candles were lit. They moved to my couch. I closed the app. I didn't need to see more. I let it keep recording. That night, I didn't sleep. I replayed the moment in my head over and over, the way shock does when it doesn't know where to land. I told myself to breathe, to slow down, to actually look again instead of letting panic decide the story. When I opened the app later that night, the angle made it clear. It wasn't a man. It was a woman. Tall, polished, early 30s maybe, hair pulled back neatly like she'd come straight from an office. My stomach dropped in a different way, but no less violently. My boyfriend greeted her with a kiss that wasn't friendly, wasn't hesitant, wasn't confused. It was practiced, comfortable, familiar. They talked for a bit, voices low but relaxed. I caught pieces of it through the audio. Something about finally having uninterrupted time. Something about being tired of sneaking around hotels. She set a bottle of wine on my counter, like she'd done it before. Candles were already lit, which meant he'd planned this. They moved to my couch, the one I'd picked out, paid for, cleaned every Sunday. I closed the app again, my hands shaking now. I didn't need to watch them use my space like a borrowed hotel room. I let the camera keep recording because some part of me knew I'd need proof, not for revenge, but to keep myself from ever questioning what I saw. The next morning, I opened the app again. They were in my kitchen making breakfast, laughing softly, moving around each other like this wasn't new. That's when I noticed it, her left hand as she reached for a mug, a ring, gold. Not subtle, not casual, an engagement ring. So it wasn't just cheating on me. It was cheating with someone who was planning a wedding with someone else. The clarity that came with that realization was brutal but steady. I took screenshots, lots of them. Clear shots of her face, the ring, them together in my kitchen. I didn't rush. I didn't scream. I documented. Then I started digging. One of the screenshots caught the logo on her work tote, a finance firm. I zoomed in, searched it, found the company website, scrolled through the team page until there she was. Senior analyst, bio full of buzzwords and accomplishments. Clicked through tagged photos and found what I expected, but still dreaded. An engagement announcement from a few months earlier. Big ring, big smiles, comments filled with congratulations. Her fiancé's profile linked right there. I sat staring at his page for a long time. He looked normal, happy, excited about a future he didn't know was already rotting. I thought about how I'd feel if someone knew this about my partner and chose not to tell me. That settled it. I downloaded the clearest clips. Her arriving, the kiss, breakfast in my kitchen. Nothing graphic, nothing unnecessary, just enough to remove all doubt. I wrote a message and rewrote it twice before sending. I kept it factual, calm, almost detached. I told him I was sorry to be the one to tell him, that I'd been dating the man in the videos for over a year, that my boyfriend had asked me to leave my apartment for the weekend without explanation, that I got suspicious and installed a camera, that the footage was time-stamped from that weekend, that I was ending my relationship, that he deserved to know the truth about him. I sent it through his company's public contact form, addressed to him directly, then sat back and waited. Sunday afternoon, my phone started ringing. Once, twice, again and again. I didn't answer. I checked the camera feed instead. My boyfriend was pacing my apartment, phone glued to his ear, panic written all over his face. She was there too, also on her phone, also unraveling. The voicemails started piling up. First worried, then annoyed, then demanding. Texts followed the same pattern. Please call me. This isn't funny. Stop ignoring me. This is important. I didn't respond. Monday morning, I went back to my apartment. The place smelled like someone else's perfume. My skin crawled. Some of her things were gone. Clothes missing from the drawer. Her overnight bag gone. He'd left in a hurry. I boxed up everything my boyfriend had left behind and stacked it neatly by the door. I changed the locks during my lunch break. When he showed up that evening, his key didn't work. He knocked like he thought the door might change its mind if he hit it hard enough. When I didn't answer, he called. I picked up on the third ring, not because I wanted to hear his voice, but because I wanted it documented. My key isn't working, he said, breathless. Did you change the locks? I told him yes. There was a pause, the kind where someone realizes the ground they've been standing on is gone. Why would you do that? He asked. I told him his things were boxed by the door and I'd bring them down. He said we needed to talk about this. I said there was nothing to talk about. When I opened the door, he started in immediately, asking if I'd gone through his phone, accusing me of invading his privacy. I told him I hadn't touched his phone. He went quiet for half a second, then asked how I knew. I told him there was a security camera in my apartment, the one he asked to use without questions. The silence on the line stretched. You recorded us? He said. I told him it was my apartment, my camera, legally installed. He said that was illegal. I told him it wasn't. He asked if I'd sent it to her. I said I sent it to the man she was engaged to. He started shouting then, talking about consequences, about his job, about people finding out. I told him actions have consequences, and maybe not having an affair in someone else's home would have helped. He said it wasn't what it looked like. I said it was exactly what it looked like. I hung up and carried his boxes downstairs. He was standing there with his sister, who launched into me the second she saw my face. She called me disgusting, a psycho, accused me of filming people without consent. I repeated the same sentence until it stuck. My apartment, my camera, my rules. My ex was crying now, the kind of crying that might be real or might be performative. He asked for 5 minutes. I said no. He said I'd ruined everything. I said he ruined his own relationship. He said I was cruel. I laughed, because the irony was too sharp to ignore. He'd asked me to leave my own home so he could cheat in it, and I was the cruel one. I handed them the last box and went back inside. I blocked their numbers before I even reached the elevator. Unknown numbers lit up my phone all night. I ignored every single one. The next week, an email came through from his fiancé. Calm, measured. She thanked me for telling her, said she ended the engagement the same day, said she was angry, but managing. She warned me he was telling people I faked the videos, that I was obsessed and made it all up. I told her I had the originals with metadata and timestamps if she ever needed proof, but that I just wanted to move on. She told me I did the right thing. That mattered more than she probably knew. The retaliation started after that. His friend showed up in my building lobby, yelling about privacy violations. Security called me. I told them not to let her up. She left after they threatened to call the police. That night, my ex sent a long email, half apology, half blame. He admitted the affair had been going on for 6 months and that he knew she was engaged. He said he planned to break up with me but needed time. He said I violated his trust by putting a camera in my apartment and had no right to share the footage. The mental gymnastics were impressive. I didn't respond. Then came a legal threat. An email from someone claiming to be a lawyer, demanding I delete all footage and cease contact. The letterhead looked like a template. I forwarded it to my cousin, who's an actual attorney. She laughed and told me it was fake, that real lawyers don't send demands from Gmail. She told me to keep everything and ignore it. A few days later, I got called down to my work lobby. He was there, security hovering. He said we needed to talk. I said no. He said I destroyed his life. I told him he destroyed his own life when he chose to cheat. He said she told him we were basically over. I told him we weren't. He threatened to sue. I told him to try. Security escorted him out and filed an incident report. I kept a copy. He didn't stop. He showed up at my gym, walked straight up to my treadmill. I told him to leave. Staff intervened. He cried, accused me of ruining everything. The staff asked me what happened. I told them the truth. They told him to leave or they'd call the police. He left glaring. When I got home that night, there was a note taped to my door in his handwriting, telling me I didn't have to destroy everything, that I could have just broken up like a normal person. I tore it up and threw it away. The next message came from her fiancé, warning me he was telling people I was stalking him and the videos were fake. I told him I had proof and didn't care about his spin. He told me his brother said anyone who exposes a cheater deserves a beer. That made me smile. By the end of the week, my building manager called. My ex had been trying to get in, claiming he still lived there. Security denied him access. He got aggressive. The manager asked if he had any property left inside. I said no. They documented everything and told me if he came back, they'd call the police. That same day, his mother emailed me, calling me disappointing, accusing me of humiliating her son over a mistake. I forwarded it to my cousin and didn't reply. The escalation was predictable and exhausting, but it was also clarifying. They weren't upset about the truth. They were upset they lost control of the story, and I wasn't done taking it back. The next move crossed a line I didn't expect, and it happened quietly. I came home from work one evening and noticed my apartment door wasn't fully closed. Not forced, just slightly ajar, like someone hadn't bothered to pull it shut all the way. I froze in the hallway, keys still in my hand, and called building security before I stepped another inch. They sent someone up with me. We walked in together. Nothing obvious was missing, but everything felt wrong. Drawers that I knew I'd closed were half open. Papers on my desk were stacked differently. The closet looked rummaged through, hangers shifted like someone had moved things and tried to put them back. It felt invasive in a way that went past anger and into something colder. Security checked the logs. Cameras showed my ex tailgating another resident into the building earlier that afternoon. They hadn't realized he'd made it to my unit. I called the police. They took photos, dusted for prints, filed a report for breaking and entering. I slept with the lights on that night, phone charging on the nightstand, the camera feed open beside me. The legal side moved faster after that. I filed for a restraining order the next week. He showed up to court with his mother and the same fake lawyer from the email. The judge asked for the attorney's bar number. He didn't have one. The judge's patience evaporated. I presented everything, the original footage with timestamps, the lock change, the gym incident, the lobby scene, the note on my door, the security video of him tailgating into the building, the police report. His side tried to argue I provoked retaliation by sharing intimate recordings. The judge cut them off and said what I'd done was lawful documentation inside my own residence, and what he'd done afterward constituted harassment and trespass. A temporary restraining order was granted on the spot. 1 year. No contact. No access to my building or workplace. 500 feet. Violation equals arrest. He cried. His mother yelled at the judge about protecting the wrong person. Bailiffs escorted them out. I thought that would be the end. It wasn't. A few nights later, I got a message from her fiancé again. He said my ex had shown up at his place with flowers, trying to apologize, insisting it was all a misunderstanding and begging to talk. He warned me to be careful. He said he'd filed his own restraining order after his place was broken into the previous week. I thanked him and locked my door twice. Then something strange arrived at my office, a small package with no return address. Inside was a flash drive and a handwritten note that said, "Thought you'd want this." I didn't plug it into my laptop. I took it home and used an old machine I kept for junk files. The video was from a coffee shop security camera. Clear audio. My ex and the woman from my apartment screaming at each other. She accused him of lying, of promising he'd leave me. He told her she assumed what she wanted to hear, that she offered my apartment, that he never asked. She threw her coffee at him and walked out. I watched it twice, then shut the laptop. I didn't need to know who sent it. The truth had a way of surfacing on its own. The fallout kept spreading. His fiancé messaged to say he'd been fired. Office gossip, performance issues, too much drama. She told me she'd started dating someone new. Normal. Kind. No secret weekends. I was happy for her. I replaced my couch. I couldn't sit on it without thinking about them. New sheets, new bedding, rearranged furniture. I added another camera by the door, visible this time, a deterrent. Friends split. A few said I went too far. Others understood immediately. Anyone who thought exposing a lie was worse than living, it didn't belong in my life anymore. The restraining order worked until it didn't. About a month in, he violated it by having his sister text me on his behalf. I reported it. He spent a night in jail and was put on probation. After that, the noise finally stopped. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt clear. The lights were on now. The shadows had nowhere to hide. The quiet that followed wasn't immediate. It arrived in layers, like dust settling after a long demolition. A week passed, then 2. The restraining order held. No calls, no texts, no surprise appearances in places he had no right to be. I slept better, not perfectly, but without jolting awake to phantom noises. I learned the sound of my own apartment again, the way the air conditioner kicked on, the elevator hum through the walls, the steady rhythm of a place that belonged to me. About 3 weeks in, I got another message from his fiancée. She told me he'd been officially terminated. The company didn't make a spectacle of it, just cited performance issues and reputational concerns. She said it felt surreal, watching the man she almost married unravel so quickly once the truth stopped being contained. She thanked me again. I told her she didn't owe me anything. We both owed ourselves a future that wasn't built on lies. She agreed. She said she was taking things slow, that she'd started seeing someone normal, someone who didn't disappear on weekends or need secrets to feel important. The flash drive stayed in my drawer. I didn't share it. I didn't need to. Watching them turn on each other had been satisfying in a way I hadn't expected, but it wasn't the point. The point was clarity. The point was that when lies lose oxygen, they collapse on themselves. I made changes that had nothing to do with them and everything to do with me. I replaced the couch, not because it was ruined, but because I wanted to sit somewhere that didn't hold memories I hadn't consented to. I changed the bedding, rearranged the furniture, hung new art. I added another security camera, visible this time, right by the door. Not because I was afraid, but because boundaries work better when they're obvious. Some friends drifted away. A few said I went too far, that I could have broken up quietly and moved on. I let them go. Anyone who thought exposing the truth was worse than living a lie wasn't someone I needed close. The people who mattered stayed. My brother told me he was proud of me for not being a doormat. A coworker bought me a beer and said, "If someone asks you to leave your own apartment for a weekend and won't explain why, that's not trust. That's audacity." We laughed. It helped. The restraining order was extended to a full year. He violated it once more by trying to route a message through his sister. I reported it. He spent a night in jail and was put on probation. After that, the silence became real. Not brittle, not temporary, real. I never found out who sent the coffee shop footage. Maybe someone who recognized them. maybe her brother, maybe a stranger who thought the truth deserved an audience. It didn't matter. The timing was perfect. The message was clear. Lies don't age well. I started dating again, slowly, carefully. I paid attention to my instincts instead of arguing with them. Trust, I learned, isn't blind, it's earned. And suspicion isn't cruelty. Sometimes it's just intelligence catching up to reality. Looking back, the camera wasn't the turning point. It was the confirmation. It gave me proof so clean and undeniable that no one could gaslight me into doubting what I already knew. No, you're imagining things. No, it's complicated. Just timestamps and truth. People will say I went too far, that sending the footage to her fiancé was vindictive. Maybe it was. I don't regret it. She deserved to know who she was planning to marry. If the roles were reversed, I would have wanted someone to tell me. Turning on the lights isn't cruelty, it's honesty. My name is Molly D. Bowen. When someone asked me to leave my own apartment for a weekend and told me not to ask questions, I didn't ask. I listened. I documented. I told the truth to the person who had a right to it. Everything that followed was just consequences catching up to choices that were never mine.